Hello everybody, Realm Builder Guy here, and welcome back to the channel. And something that, honestly, it even says greetings down here, greetings, that I haven't done in a while, also because Paradox had their usual summer break, and there weren't any dev diaries to talk about, and I was just also busy, so now it is time to delve into a few dev diaries, two in fact, that came out here in the beginning of August. I'm now recording this on the 11th, so we have two dev diaries to get into, dev diary number 67 and 68. I have not read through these here yet, but we will discover them together. I'm sure you've already seen a lot of this information somewhere else, but here is kind of what I think about what we are about to see. And I appreciate all of you that are joining me on this. And don't forget to hit that like button. Again, it really does help the channel grow a lot. So in this first one we're going to look at, it's Dev Diary 67, A View to a Map. The team is slowly coming back together after a well-deserved summer vacation. Today, let's have a look at what we've been doing to the culture setup and some small-scale map tweaks. Most of the work we've spent on cultures has naturally gone into the cultural overhaul itself, which remember is a big part of the upcoming Royal Court DLC expansion, but we have made some general improvements as well, most notably over in India. So I did see that a lot of this will be about India, and that's really intriguing. So starting with a small culture addition in Southern Europe, that some of you keen-eyed readers noticed back in a previous dev diary, we've added back a fan favorite from CK2, Carantanian. The culture is quite extensive on game start and covers most of southeastern Bavaria. From a historical point of view, the culture is of a West Slavic origin, but as they got cut off from their ancestral brethren in the Carpathian Basin, they became gradually closer to the South Slavic peoples. We represent this by Caranthian having a West Slavic heritage, but speaking South Slavic language. Okay, so you can see that here. Next, I'll hand it over to our local India expert at Trin Tragula to talk about, you guessed it, India. Okay, so India, obviously, on a side note, is an area that a lot of people really enjoy playing because there's so much to dive into there, but it's an area that does need a little bit of TLC. So the culture rework has been a good opportunity to rework the cultures in India a bit. The current setup here is one we inherited from Crusader Kings 2, and it was in some ways not entirely appropriate for our era. To better reflect the diversity of the subcontinent, we have added two new cultures, changed the old ones a bit, and also added a great number of potential culture names for when the large starting cultures diverge. First of all, we have gotten rid of Hindustani culture. The two new cultures have been broken away from what it used to cover in the south. The core part of the culture covers the Gangetic Plain, and is now known as Kanauji after the imperial city of Kanauj, Kanyakubja, which was the main prize of the region, often gave its name to it. So I do like that. That's a nice, you can see that right here in the middle. I like that, that makes sense. Hindustani itself is still around in a way as a possible name for a cultural hybrid between an Iranian or Turkic culture with one of the North Indian cultures. Okay, so you can still add that. Starting in the central parts of India, the newly added Gond, you can see right here in the middle, culture has been carved out of areas that were previously Hindustani, Marathi, or Oriya. In 1066, most Gond counties are under the control of the Siddhi Kingdom, and many of these counties are now also tribal at start. This culture covers a region that was in an odd place in the old setup, at the border of several cultures, but not quite belonging to either of them. So you can see here Gond culture and where it goes, sacred groves, we've got jungle warriors, and cultural blending, which is kind of cool. Covering the Malwa Plateau, as well as some of the adjacent regions that were previously considered Hindustani. This new culture shares a language with the Rajasthani and the Gujarati cultures. Gurjar, Apabramza. Yes, I will mispronounce things, and no, it's not the end of the world. The existing Rajput culture has been renamed Rajasthani, since Rajput as a cultural distinction does not really fit our start date, and Assamese is now known as Kamrupi. So we can see Malvi right there. Indian history and title improvements. While looking over the subcontinent, it was also clear that in some areas the title setup was also better suited for the early modern era, rather than the medieval era around Crusader Kings 3 start dates. I agree. A number of baronies have been renamed and reorganized into new counties, and a number of new vassals have been scripted in, especially for the 1066 start, which once again shows why the 1066 start is the best start. I don't care what you think. No, it's just my personal preference. I've gone over that in a previous video, and I stick to my guns. The starting presumptions about who controlled what in 1066 have also been revisited to bring things better in line with history and create a more interesting start. There are now more starting characters, both independent and vassals, and most kings will no longer start above their domain limit. This is always a huge thing that I hate. I've also noticed this with some mods. You pick up a ruler and you're like 5 or 6 at times domains or holdings over your domain limit, and you don't even have enough people in your court to give it to, and you're massively penalized from the start. I hate that. I don't like that. I think that needs to be significantly better balanced. That's just my personal opinion, because otherwise you're just doing that instead of trying to get into the game, and especially for new players who don't really know how to handle holdings and domain limit, that can just be, well, it's problematic, to be honest. Some things like the crisis of the Chola Empire should also be a bit better represented in the initial setup, with strong and somewhat unruly Pandya vassals, a much stronger Lankan revolt, and the Chera Raja now independent, with his historical vassals to support him. You can now also play as the future king Kulatunga. There are also other minor changes, such as revisiting the extent of cultures like Kashmiri and Telugu, and assigning a number of tribal counties in this eastern central part of the subcontinent. So, that's it. My opinion, this was much needed and makes a big chunk of the CK3 map significantly more interesting and more playable. I did, of course, a small guide about Chola in both 867 and 1066. Very interesting culture group and realm. I will not do an India guide, start guide, or anything like that until this is all in, I assume then with Royal Court, whenever that does come out. So once that comes out, you can expect an India guide to follow shortly thereafter. So now let's head to Dev Diary number 68, Inspiration Never Dies. As you may already know, artifacts are making a triumphant return in Royal Court. The artifacts themselves will be familiar to those of you who have used them in CK2, but how you actually get your hands on them will be slightly different. As such, I won't talk much about the artifacts themselves for now, but I'll be going over one of the major ways of how you will acquire artifacts. Characters throughout the world can gain what we call an inspiration. Inspirations come about as a character is seeking to create something extraordinary, resulting in the character wanting to pursue the means of realizing their inspiration. They may want to write a great tome of knowledge, weave a tapestry, or forge a magnificent crown. There are many different kinds of inspirations, all resulting in various types of artifacts upon completion. An inspiration can be broad, such as someone wanting to merely forge a weapon, or very specific, like a character wanting to forge a sword. See, Frederick is inspired, has the weapon inspiration, he wants to forge a dagger. Interesting. Inspirations only occur for landless characters. This I really like. Why do I like this? Because it eliminates metagaming, well, it doesn't eliminate it, but it definitely means that you as a player character, as whatever ruler you choose, you're not exploiting this for your own character. We want to extend the immersion of guests and courtiers by making them valuable to you, even if you have no desire to push their claims or use their skills as a counselor. I've come across this now in a few, honestly, in most of my playthroughs where I see someone pop up, they have a claim. I usually don't care about the claim because the costs and sometimes the ramifications of pushing the claim really don't matter, or their skills are kind of meh, or I'm not going to put them in charge in council because I'm trying to placate a pretty good vassal. This adds more depth to guests coming and courtiers coming to your court, which obviously is a big part of royal court. Inspired characters will travel the world from court to court seeking a wealthy monarch to sponsor them in their creation. Realms with a high grandeur will be able to attract inspired characters more frequently than those with low grandeur, granting them a higher chance at receiving skilled craftsmen that will be able to forge an artifact to meet your expectations. Love this. Really like this. It means grander, bigger courts can attract more of these people and therefore also make them even grander. I mean, you think about it, if you're just some lonely count in Schwaben versus the King of France, there should be a massive difference. Once an inspired character arrives at your court, you can choose to sponsor them by giving them the gold they ask for. A skilled character will demand larger amounts of gold, but will also yield better results in creating an artifact. Most of the time, at least. No one is infallible after all. The king that is relevant depends on the type of art, or the skill, not the king. The skill that is relevant depends on the type of artifact they want to make. I apologize, I'm tired. I have a sick baby at home. For example, a weapon and the quality it gets is dependent on the character's martial and prowess skill. Writing a book, on the other hand, scales with learning. Makes complete sense. We can see here Frederick joins the court, and the Holy Roman Emperor funds Frederick with 300 to forge a dagger. He gains 40 opinion of you, and the weapon inspiration is based on martial prowess. 300 for a dagger. It's got to be one heck of a dagger. After funding an inspiration, it will take some time for the character to create the artifact. Makes sense. During the creation progress, various situations can happen, such as the character asking for better materials to work with. Below you will find such an example in which my inspired character finds excellent material at the local market. Approve the request and pay for the material, and you'll increase the overall quality of the artifact they produce. So you can see that inspiration, highest quality, even more gold. An inspiration gains progress similar to that of a scheme. You'll gain progress depending on a chance each month, making the actual time it takes to complete vary. Once the inspiration reaches full progress, the character will approach you to present their creation. Very nice. Mind you that this is not the only way in which you can get an artifact. Inspirations exist to serve as the most significant means of doing so, since they will generally grant you artifacts of a higher quality. You can still get artifacts by other means, such as getting them in events. Alright, so there you go. That's the end of this. I like this because it adds more flavor, it adds more value to guests and courtiers of your court, which I always find a little bit lacking at times. And so, it goes beyond I need a physician, or maybe I've got an open council spot and I really need someone, or I need extra knights and champions. It just adds more flavor to it, which makes sense because that is, of course, the premise of Royal Court, is to make the court a central theme. I'm still curious to see how it all plays out at the end, but it could be pretty good. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments of both of these changes, specifically to India in the first Dev Diary, and then this one when it comes to artifacts and inspiration and characters that show up and help you progress as a ruler and add more grandeur. So I'm curious really to see how this plays out mechanically, and hopefully it's not too exploitable. So until next time, I'm Realm Builder Guy. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you're new to not miss out on any Crusader Kings 3 content moving forward. Until next time, I'll talk to you soon.